Hi there, my name is Sherry and I am a part-time reseller on platforms such as eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Depop, wherever I think I can make some money. I find my items, my inventory from places such as yard sales, estate sales, thrift stores, people give me things, you name it. I find things just about everywhere. I am being very casual today, and I just want to talk about reselling and why it may not be for you. I've been selling on eBay since the mid to late 90s. It started off as a hobby, something fun, a little friendly competition with my friend. You know, we would find things that were undervalued at places that we would shop, such as garage sales, and we would just kind of see what we would make off of it. I am a part-time reseller, meaning I have a full-time job. I work 4 days a week, 9 hours a day at a regular job, and I come home and I sell things after work, on the weekends, my day off. And so it does take a lot of my time. It's almost like I have 2 full-time jobs, really, but I'm considered part-time. I do plan on going full-time probably in the next 3 to 5 years if things go right. I have a few things that I want to have paid off before I jump into it full-time, just to, just for security. If things aren't selling or moving very quick, I don't want to have to worry about making a car payment or something like that. So 3 to 5 years is my goal. So if you're thinking about being a reseller, here are some things to consider. I love it. It is definitely for me. Like I said, I've been doing it for many years, and I have no desire to quit doing it. I really like it. So here's a list. I put together 10 reasons why reselling may not be for you. So we're going to start backwards. Number 10, if you don't like to get up early, if you like to sleep in, reselling may not be for you, especially if you like to sleep in on the weekends. I was up this morning at 5 o'clock. I left the house by 6 to go to the first yard sale. Yard sales around this area generally start between 7 or 8, and you have to be there first. If you're not first, you're not going to get the good stuff because there are other resellers. Just because you don't hear people talking about it doesn't mean there aren't other resellers in your area. You're not going to go around bragging about it, because then if people knew you were a reseller and they saw you coming to their sales, they are not going to want to sell things to you. So although you may not hear a lot about it in your area, they are out there. So if you don't want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, then maybe you need to rethink about, then you might want to think about doing something else to make some extra money, because the early bird definitely gets the worm. Number 9, if you don't like to get dirty, maybe reselling is not for you. Here is my case in point. I went to a hoarder's house at one time, and I dug through boxes and boxes of clothes, miscellaneous stuff, probably 40 years accumulation of just stuff. And the boxes had dust on them. There was rodent feces. I did wear some gloves. There were spiders. If you don't like creepy crawlies, I don't think reselling is for you, because there's a lot of garages to be dug through and a lot of boxes, and the stuff is not going to jump out of the boxes itself. Sorry guys, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. You're going to go through some dust. You're going to go to some places that maybe you really might not want to be in normally, but if you think you can make a couple $100 in that shed, better glove up and get in there. Number 8, if you're afraid to take chances, especially with your money, maybe you shouldn't be a reseller. So last year I was at a garage sale, and a lady had boxes and boxes, hundreds of pieces of clothing that she was trying to sell. And I went back later on that day, and although she had sold some at her yard sale, there were still many boxes left. So I took a chance. I gave her $550 of my money, and I took those boxes home with me. And so I think there were about 6 large boxes total. I'm down to 2 now. I have actually done well with it, but it was a risk. I took $550 out of my own bank account and handed it to this lady, took these boxes home, not knowing if I could sell them or not. I just kind of thought, you know, I did the math, the minimum I could, you know. So I'm just throwing that out there as well. You will be spending a lot of your own money, especially when you're first getting started, when you don't have a regular income stream from your sales. You're going to have money on hand to get started. So just something else to think about. Number 7, if you become easily attached to things, if you like to keep things once you buy them and just hate to get rid of it, maybe you should not be a reseller. Speaking of accumulation, this is still part of it, is a death pile could easily happen. What's a death pile, you ask? Well, a death pile is an accumulation of inventory that you had intended on selling, but ends up piling up in a corner to die lonely because it never does get listed. A pile of unlisted items, a death pile, will not make you money. It will just cost you money. It's going to take up valuable real estate in your room or your garage or wherever you're going to store things. You've spent money on these items. You need to get them listed. If you're just an impulse buyer and just buy things because they were $1, don't become a reseller, because you're going to end up with a pile of junk in the garage that you can't get rid of. And if you're married, you're probably going to have an unhappy spouse. Number 6, if you don't like being wrong or admitting you're wrong, even if you're right, you shouldn't be a reseller. So when you're a reseller, you need to stand behind your product. I always go through things. I try to know any imperfections, and I am always trying to make sure what I have listed describes the item accurately and to the best of my knowledge. Everything is in the condition that I describe it to be before I put it on the sales platform, like on eBay. Hopefully I said that right. Anyway, if you don't, you're going to get a lot of negative feedback. And then you're going to have to admit you're wrong. You're going to have to give them a refund, or you're going to risk having negative feedback. And if you have a bunch of negative feedback, you're not going to get the sales, and then you will not survive as a reseller. We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. I have sold things to somebody in the past, and they called me on it and said, hey, you know, this doesn't quite work. You said it worked, you know, and so I thought it worked fine. Could be that maybe they were trying to pull a scam. That's another thing. You're going to have to admit you're wrong, even if you're right sometimes. They could be scamming you, but you're going to need to give them a refund. Give them back that $10 that they paid for the toy record player. It's just not worth it, because if you're going to get a lot of negative feedback, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you sales. Your seller level is going to go down, and with your seller level going down, some of the perks you get once you get an eBay store, that is going to go down too. If you have good feedback in this business, even though the customer isn't always right, especially with eBay, the customer is usually always right. They're going to win. So if that's the case, don't be a reseller. Number 5, if you can't balance your own checkbook, maybe you shouldn't become a reseller, because you have to treat your business as a business. Number 4, if you're not a consistent person, then you should not be a reseller. You need to list every day. You need to source every day. You need to consistently keep up with what's going on in your reselling business. Not only that, you need to ship every day. You need to be the type of person who can stick to a schedule, especially if you're doing it full time. You need to treat it like a job, especially if you're doing, for instance, this is how I would do it. On my days off, I get up first thing in the morning and I get ready and go sourcing. I take the packages, which I packaged the night before, with me, drop them off at the post office on the way to the thrift store or wherever I'm planning on sourcing. I come back, I list items, I clean things up, and then take a break if I need to, somewhere in between that, and then before I go to bed at night or after dinner usually, I package things up to get out to go to the post office the next day. And then you need to make sure you go through your books and your receipts and make sure all of that is in order. Get up, list, sell, pack, ship, repeat. Do it every day consistently. If you're not a very consistent person, then you're not going to make a very good reseller. All right, and number 3, if you don't like people, you shouldn't be a reseller. All right, and number 3, if you don't like people, you shouldn't be a reseller. You need to have a cheerful disposition. If you walk up to somebody at a yard sale and you are trying to get in maybe 15 minutes before it opens, if you don't have the right attitude and a smile on your face, then guess what? Take a hike, buddy. You're going to have to stay there and wait until it opens. You'll stand out in the rain for about 15 minutes. Or you can walk up to them and say, oh, hey, I see you're having a yard sale. Oh, does it start at 8 o'clock? I'm sorry, I'm a little early. A lot of times they're like, well, that's okay. I'm almost ready anyway. Come on in and take a look. That's all it takes. If you walk up in there like, hey, you're having a yard sale, and just barge, or just if you just walk up and start going through their stuff and you know they're not quite ready and you don't even acknowledge them, you're not going to get a very good reception. Just saying. Earlier I mentioned the other resellers. They are not the enemy. They can be your friend. And coming up to the next tip, social media. If you don't like social media, or if you're afraid of social media, you're not going to make a good reseller. Well, that's not true. You could be a good reseller without social media, but social media helps a lot. For instance, I'm on Instagram. I've learned a lot from people that I have connected with on Instagram. They comment on my things. I post, I have this. If I don't know anything about it, sometimes somebody on Instagram will. Or there's a wealth of knowledge out there on the internet that other resellers can provide. And a lot of those resellers, like me, I'm more than happy to share my information with you. If you got, for instance, I like vintage kitchenware. If you had a question on how to clean cast aluminum pans, hey, I'd be happy to share how I clean them. I have a great trick. Just ask. Okay, and the number 1 reason that you should not be a reseller is if you don't want to put in the time. Be a quick flip. Some things sit for weeks. Some things sit nearly a year in your store without being sold. Hey, you just got to wait it out. Maybe there's a reason why it hasn't sold. Maybe you haven't listened to the other resellers on social media that you're afraid to be on, and they would have told you not to buy that. So out of those 11 hours that I spent at the sales, I bought a total of 6 items. Yes, 6. Can you see? 6 items I bought today, and I probably will only make about $120 profit. It was not a good weekend for me out sourcing. That's just life though. Sometimes you'll go to sales and you have to make 2 trips to unload everything that you buy because there are so many deals to be made. Everybody's getting rid of stuff and so forth, and the great deals are abundant, but not all the time. 12-hour days are not uncommon. For instance, this morning, as I said earlier, I was up at 5 o'clock. I went out, I went to the sales. I went all day out to sales. I stopped at a thrift store on my way home just because I was getting my car washed, and a block away I knew there was a thrift store. I was getting my car washed, and I knew that a block down the road was a thrift store. Might as well go up there instead of just hanging out waiting for my car to be washed. Walked up there, walked around there for about 15-20 minutes, walked home with my 1 bag. I only found 1 pair of shoes to buy for $2, which is only going to make me about 20 bucks. But anywho, you gotta take advantage of everything whenever you're a reseller. Gotta use your time wisely. So anyway, I come home and I unload what I bought. I looked at things and I researched them a little more because some of the items I bought, I was at a rural area for my yard sale and the internet wasn't great. So I had to take a chance. I was willing to take a chance on what I bought being something that was worth money. So I came home, researched a little more. I cleaned things up a little bit because there was a little dust here and there in those boxes that I dug through today. Got it all cleaned up. And then, of course, I had to take pictures of them. I had to edit my photographs. And then you put them in boxes and you inventory them and put them away. So that took half of my day right there. The yard sales, the cleaning, the photographing, the boxing. Yes, you do have to clean your items once you bring them home. Tennis shoes that somebody's been walking in, you need to make sure that they are sparkling clean and ready to be photographed and ready for the next person. If you have a successful eBay business, you could spend an hour or two each evening packaging up your sales. And that's just for moderate sales. What if you were a full-time eBay seller selling 20 to 50 items a day? Then you're going to have to cut out time for all that packaging. Thrift trips. Sometimes I spend a full 8 hours going to thrift stores. I live in an area where the thrift stores are okay. There's other resellers in the area, so there's some competition out there, so I don't always find stuff. On occasion, I like to go north, and I travel by car 2 hours to another block of my time is spent by research. Research. I watch YouTube videos. There are several resellers that I follow religiously because they have a lot of information on items that I can find in my area, things that maybe I didn't think about. Like recently, I discovered that tiki mugs were a popular item to sell. They're a bolo. People collect tiki mugs. Hey, if I wouldn't have known that, I would have passed up that $2 freaky little mug that I saw today while I was out sourcing. I would have walked right by it because it just looked like a, I would have walked right by it because honestly, it just looks like a freaky little face. But you know what? Somebody out there collects them. There's a big following for vintage baseball caps. Honestly, people love those things. If I was not watching somebody's YouTube channel and they were telling me some of the things to look for, some of the most collectible ones, I probably would have been passing up a lot of those. I probably would have been passing a lot of them up. So research is king. Not just YouTube videos. I type in things on eBay and I research kitchen items. If you type in vintage kitchenware on eBay, you're going to get a top list. The top things that come up are the things that are mostly searched. The items that come up first are the items that people mostly search for. So ding, you want to research those items, see what they're selling for, so you know to look out for these items when you're out searching the thrift stores in the cookware aisle. Maybe cookware is not your thing. Maybe you like vintage t-shirts, or maybe you're into collectible toys. I like to buy collectible toys, but I did not know that these tiny little muscle men were worth so much money. So guess what? I am looking for those every time I'm out, and I am going to snag them up. Speaking of, without watching somebody's YouTube channel, I had no idea that Littlest Pet Shop was still something that people like to collect. Somebody had a whole box of toys for sale last weekend for $1. And guess what? Half of it was Littlest Pet Shop figurines. So out of that $1, I have $75 worth of toys listed right now on eBay, and I would have not have known that if I wasn't watching other resellers on social media and YouTube. Another reason to watch YouTube and to keep up with researching is you gotta know the brands. If you're into clothing and you want to sell clothing online, you got to know which one has good resale value, which ones are worth selling. Just because you paid $100 for it brand new doesn't mean somebody's going to pay you $30 for it on the used market on eBay. Honestly, I never heard of Eileen Fisher or Tory Burch until 6 months ago because I was watching now one of my most favorite YouTubers, and that's all she sells is clothing. And so I learned about those, and if it wasn't for her, I would not have picked up those $75 Tory Burch sandals at the Goodwill. So there you go. You gotta keep up, you gotta research. It takes a lot of your time, and I have a very understanding spouse. He puts up with my mess. For several months, half of our 2-car garage was full of my stuff. He had to go move his truck out to the garage in the back, the shop, and walk in every night, no matter what the weather was. But guess what? He's very understanding, and so that's great too. I know that wasn't on my list, but a great support system is something you really should have, because honestly, if you don't have the support at home, it's going to be really hard for you to survive as a reseller. I know a lot of people think that, as I said, I go to yard sales, I come home with armloads of stuff that I paid $1 for, and I make hundreds of dollars a day, and it's just not like that. You've got to put in the time. You've got to put in the effort, but honestly, it is so rewarding, and I would not want to give it up. I love being a reseller. I like doing it on my own terms. I am kind of my own boss when I'm doing reselling. If I don't want to buy it, I don't have to. If I don't want to list that today, I won't. I'll go list something else today instead. So you have a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of great things about being a reseller. If you're thinking about being a reseller and you think you've got what it takes, the consistency, the ability to spend the time on it, if you like people and you don't mind digging through somebody else's stuff, I wish you the best luck. And hey, if this is the first time you've ever even watched my channel, I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button. I love to share information, things that I find, what I sold them for. I love sharing my information with you, what I found, what I sold them for, even my bad days. Like today, I bought 5, all weekend, 5 things worth maybe 112 hours, and I made $120. So, that's like $10 an hour pretty much is all I made today. So it's not like I'm making a ton of money. Am I comfortable? Do I have extra money to spend? You betcha. So I love it. Hey, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, bye-bye.